Welcome, guys, to another episode of the Christian Buddy Show. I am now honored to have Brian Sanders, Food Lies, on our podcast. And I understand that you have a long-winded resume, so I don't want to have an attempt at recounting your resume, but do you mind giving a brief explanation to the audience who you are and what you've been up to at the
Sure.
moment?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Yeah. So Brian Sanders, born and raised in Hawaii. I was a mechanical engineer actually. So I kind of have this scientific background, and I think it's helpful sometimes to come into this health and nutrition world, but from a different place. A lot of my doctor friends are a little kind of caught up in the system of what they're taught, and then they have to unlearn it all. And I kind of came at it from a different angle: personal health stories, family health stories. I lost both my parents around when I was 30. And so they got the same chronic diseases that so many people are getting, right? So it kind of woke me up, and I kind of realized, hey, this isn't right. This isn't what is supposed to happen to humans. And it's also kind of when I started not being able to eat whatever I wanted anymore. If anyone who's 30 or above, it's kind of the time when you just can't eat whatever you want. Even though I was athletic, running around town, it's still things creep up on you. Had all these little problems I didn't really know that I had, or I thought were normal, right? People just saying, oh yeah, this is what happens. You can't do all the things you used to do, and your knees hurt when you like go out like on a short hike, and you have allergies and this and that. And then it all went away once I changed my diet. And so
Right.
that's kind of my quick health journey. Is I made some simple dietary changes. My health got better, and then I started going full force on a film called Food Lies that I'm making. I started my company Sapien, work with Dr. Gary, started Nose to Tails, help people get grass-fed, grass-finished meat. So basically all my endeavors kind of revolve around this health world now for the past 4 years full time.
Fantastic. And before we get into the nutrition side of this podcast, I'm actually curious about your previous life. You founded a tech company. I'm just curious about that experience. What was the tech company called?
Oh, well, I tried a few things, but the one I sold was called Penned, and it was for writers. It was a little bit like Instagram, but for writers, and you could post stories and make chapters, and just kind of this thing that I landed on, and it built a little community. Yeah, learned a lot, right? Just how to build a community, how to just even use social media and just start something from scratch. And so great learning experience. You learned design, learned all kinds of stuff that have been helpful in everything that I do.
Fantastic. All right. And now I guess your journey now you're on making the documentary Food Lies, and it's all about exposing the nutritional lies that we've
Mhm.
been told. So I guess the first question in that space would be what, and it's a bit of a general question, but what is the most nutrient dense food in your opinion?
Oh man. Well, I guess if you just look at the numbers, it's beef liver. If you
Beef liver.
really, yeah, beef liver is where it's at. Some of the other organs are probably up there, and oysters. Yeah, I mean the most nutrient dense foods I'd say are beef liver and oysters, and I try to eat those all the time. But it's not like you have to make your diet, primarily consisting of those foods. Those just happen to be the ones with the most concentrated nutrients.
Yeah, right. Okay. And I've heard on the grapevine that you're a little bit against. Is it correct to say that you're against veganism, or you're disputing their claims? Is that
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I find myself in a war. I try to not make it a war, but people come after me. The vegan community tends to come after me, and I tend to have to always debunk their crazy claims and their crazy films. It's why I started making my film. Is I watched What the Health 4 years ago, and it's one of these classic vegan propaganda films that are not scientific, and they're based on basically animal rights, which is fine, but they need to just say that it's an animal rights film. But they always try to make it about nutrition and the environment, and it's not true. All their claims about nutrition and the environmental toll of animal foods is not true. And I mean, some of it's true. I mean, yeah, if you do factory farming chickens and you have 1 million chickens in one warehouse, that's not good. But yeah, I mean, we can get into all the different things that they claim and why it's not true.
yeah, you posted. I was looking at your Instagram. You posted something from Rich Roll, and he I think he expressed it very very efficiently. He mentioned that I think there's a concept that because you're not eating meat, you're not causing any harm, and that's just not true because it's very difficult to not be causing harm. Anything we do, we're still causing harm on planet Earth. So there's a kind of a misconception there that I kind of fell into as well. So it's interesting that there's so much information there.
Well, yeah, what I found is a simple truth: for something to live, something must die, and you can't get around it. And vegans will try to say, "Oh, well, I didn't do it intentionally. I didn't intentionally kill an animal, so therefore I'm out of the system." But you're not out of the system. There is death and everything, and you can't escape it. And you can, pretend you're not a part of it, and you could sit in a city and, be animal rights activists in a coffee shop and just kind of not know what the reality is. But when you go to the farm and the ranch and you figure out how it actually works, and that's what the clip I posted was with a great farmer who uses plants and animals together. Great, organic farm in LA. His name is John and Molly from The Biggest Little Farm. There's a whole film. I encourage people to look up The Biggest Little Farm, great documentary. And they talk about all the animals that die to grow crops. There are poisoning animals, they're shooting animals. They have to, really to grow crops, you have to wipe out entire ecosystems of plants and animals to clear the land to grow all these plant foods. So no matter what, there is a death toll when you produce food. So I mean, I get it. Maybe you want to try to find the least amount of death, right? And I think the least amount of death would be, I'm not a carnivore, but I'm friends with a lot of the carnivore people out there. If you've seen the rise of the carnivore people, but I'd say that the least amount of death you could do would be to eat to raise a cow on grass, grass-fed, grass-finished cattle, beef, and eat that for a year, and then you'd kill the one animal, and there wouldn't be much other deaths associated with your food, and you could live on it. I mean, maybe it's 2 cows, depends on how big you are. You could live off of the organs and all this stuff going on, and I mean, obviously you'd have to eat some more things, but that would be the least death. So it's just a longer story once you get into these details, and it's not as simple as the vegans make it out to be.
Yeah, I think at the root, I mean, if you kind of look at the root of all this this misinformation, there's kind of like a convenience. Like people want that convenience. They want to be able to go to the supermarket, pick up anything, and then not have to think about it ever after. So, I think convenience can be our worst enemy at times.
Well, it's how health declines. If you're talking about just the production of food and the costs that it involved in that, or even just why people get fat or sick or whatever, I think it is convenience. Yeah, it's like the modern society is super convenient, and it's made to be easy. Actually, I just posted this today. It's like people want the easy way out. It's harder to make food than to go to get fast food. It's harder to go to the gym than watch Netflix. It's harder to even look up information than just accept what's, the easy way out is just, oh, well, I heard that cows are bad for the environment. But to actually figure out the real story, it takes hundreds of hours, of research to really dig down. So it's always a bit harder to do the correct thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say something a bit controversial, and
Sure.
maybe I can get your opinion on it. But I'm not an immunologist. I believe that's the word, immunologist. But would it be fair to make the argument that the impact of coronavirus was caused by an aggregation of unhealthy people who continually made bad decisions throughout their life and compromising health, discarding those with genetic dispositions to the virus? I'm talking about specifically the individuals who discarded a proper diet and proper exercise. It's a bit of a crazy claim, but what are your opinion?
That's interesting. Well, it depends on how much you want to zoom out. I mean, in like a loose sense, that you could make a case for that's what happened. I mean, it's like all of the diseases. It's, if you just think of, yeah, in the broadest sense, that why do we have, you know, millions of people dying of heart disease and cancer every year worldwide? And it's because the same thing. It's because we went away from a natural diet and we started taking the easy way out, and we just ate these modern foods, and yeah, just became unhealthy. So in that sense, yes. So then COVID is just one more thing that comes along and preys on people with weakened immune systems and weakened metabolic health. But I mean, that's yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch to say that, but
It
you know
is
what
a
I mean.
stretch.
I
I
get
know
the
it's a
point of it.
controversial idea.
No, but I get the point of it. The point of it is,
Mm.
or the essence of that argument is semi-true. Is that all the chronic conditions and diseases and viruses and all this stuff are a bit because of modern stuff, or even modern agriculture. You could blame factory farming of plants and animals as well in that mix, where you know things tend to go wrong when we do things at industrial scales.
What's the solution?
Well, I do think about that a lot, and I think it's to go back to mixed systems and regenerative systems. Mixed systems meaning plants and animals together. You know, I know people doing them, like actually John and Molly from Biggest Little Farm. They're doing that. They have the plants and animals growing together, and they're doing it at a pretty big scale. You know, they're making a living. They're selling it to their community. And there's a guy, Gabe Brown, who's a regenerative rancher, and he does this stuff on 5,000 acres up in, I think, North Dakota and maybe South Dakota. And he's doing, you know, he's making a living and he's producing a lot of food. 5,000 acres is a lot. So I'd say it's a long road. You'd have to get rid of a lot of this corn, wheat, and soy subsidies and a lot of these monocrops. And instead of relying on those foods, those very nutrient poor foods, we would convert a lot of that land or just use other land to raise more animals like cows and steers and grow higher quality foods that can provide better nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you so I'm just curious about what your diet is, because you mentioned you're not carnivore. I'm guessing you're in the middle. You're kind of, you take the best of both worlds, I'm assuming.
I do take the best worlds of both worlds, but I'm not saying the middle per se. In the middle, I used to eat more of like this quote balanced diet thing, you know, and I used to follow the food pyramid type of thing, or you know, those kind of guidelines, and it didn't work out for me. I shifted more to the animal based side, and that's when everything got better for me, and my whole body composition changed. I lost four pant sizes actually, just by, I never counted calories. I never did anything different exercise wise. I just changed the foods I ate and moved more towards animal foods and got rid of the processed, you know, sugars and flours and vegetable oils. And it just, my body just completely changed and my health changed. So yeah, I'm sort of on that I get the bulk of my nutrition from animal foods, and then I pick the best of both worlds, and then I eat the key plant foods that are delicious and provide other nutrients that the animal foods don't have as much of, and that have lower anti-nutrients. A lot of people don't know that plant foods have anti-nutrients in them. They don't want to be eaten, and they have sort of defense systems that kind of block nutrient absorption, and so you have to kind of watch out for that.
I've heard about that. So is the idea that they're trying to defend themselves, so they let off this anti-defense system? Is that the idea behind it?
A
Mm.
little bit. I mean, kind of, yeah. So they mainly protect themselves from bugs, you know,
Right.
and all these different insects and things that try to eat them. And they just have things in them like oxalates, phytates, these things that are, yeah, the different animals don't like them. They make them sick, and they actually make humans sick. I mean, there's a whole vegan webpage about the dangers of anti-nutrients and oxalates, for example. I've heard of many vegans, even personally. I just, you know, I meet people around town and they're like, oh yeah, my mom's vegan and she had a kidney stone. And it's like, well, kidney stone is made of calcium oxalate. It's basically eating like a whole tons of spinach, kale, and all these foods with high oxalates in them, and they build up over time in your kidney and you have problems, and they block nutrient absorption. Like say the iron in spinach isn't, you're not getting all of that iron. You know, vegans will, oh, you're getting so much iron from spinach. I mean, yeah, if you, it seems like it's in there, but your body's not able to use it because some of these anti-nutrients like oxalates or phytates any number of these things block them, block absorption of them in your system.
Well, I'm gonna tell Popeye that he's not as strong as what he thought he would be. No, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I guess, do you have any? Because I know you're a man of science, and I've read your website, your Food Lies, where you've got quite an extensive list of articles there. Are there any that kind of come to mind that are floating around in your mind now, that you can share with the audience that are very impactful and very
Mm.
uh,
Well, yeah, there's so many topics. I mean, pick a topic and I can tell you
all
one. But
right, pick a topic.
well, okay, I'll do one while you're thinking. But
Okay.
a big one for me that in the past year was the internal medicine field has a journal called the Annals of Internal Medicine, and they published 5 articles pretty much exonerating red meat, saying red meat is healthy, it is fine. There's no that there, there's been claims for, well, I don't know how long, many years, actually many decades, there've been claims that red meat is bad for you. And especially in 2015, the WHO, the World Health Organization, deemed it, carcinogenic. And basically these 5 papers said that the meta-analysis from all the papers that have been published on saturated fat, red meat, all this type of stuff, they said that it's not of concern. There's no evidence that it's negative to people's health, which of course makes sense. It's we've been eating meat for all of history. It's partly how we became human is by eating meat and animal foods. So why would it be? Why would it be harmful?
Yeah. Switching gears now, you recently, was it recent or a long time ago, you went to Africa?
Mm-hmm.
That would have been a pretty cool experience. Do you mind sharing that experience?
Oh yeah, that was recently. It was this year, 2021, February. I went to Tanzania and Uganda for the film, for Food Lies, and we were spending time with these hunter-gatherer tribes that still live how they used to, and they're still amazingly healthy. They live long. They don't have any of this chronic disease that, I mean, some of it's creeping in. The people who modernize, right? Some of these groups, they're starting to eat the modern foods, and or they're moving into villages and they're having some of these same problems. But if they are still eating their natural diets without the modern foods, I met a lady who was supposed to be 120 years old. I didn't see her birth certificate. She didn't have one, but I saw her daughter, her youngest daughter was 90. She had 6 generations. They all were around. So she was the 6th generation. She was saying, yeah, I grew up in the forest. We'd trap animals. She'd eat meat 3 times a day. And it's been sort of a steady decline since they got off that diet. The Maasai in Tanzania we spent time with, they're the ones that famously drink blood and milk. They eat meat, blood, and milk. The men do, at least much of their life.
Jeez.
Yeah, we did it. We ate it it was great. We got some of the blood and milk and drank it fresh.
So is it is it the blood of the cow or what?
Yeah.
And you just drink it?
They drink it. Yeah. So they have their little herd and they have the grass huts. They kind of move around every 6 months and they grab one of them. They rotate, they just take like a couple, like a liter or 2 out. Just like if you're to draw blood, you give like, I don't know what, a liter. They'll take the equivalent for a big cow would be, 3 liters. So they'll take 3 liters out and the whole group will drink. So, well, first they get the milk, right? So the fresh raw milk in a bucket, like a tin container. And then they'll hit an artery with a little arrow that just punctures it really quick. And then it sprays out and then they collect it in the tin with the milk and then everyone drinks it. And that's their breakfast. And that's like straight nutrition. Wow. It's like all they really need. Yeah, it's their breakfast, and then they go out for their day, and then they come back, and then they have that for dinner.
Jesus, that's yeah, my mind's blown at the moment. I was gonna have toast. I was gonna have toast with peanut butter for breakfast. Okay.
I mean, no, but they're super tall, strong, healthy, amazing teeth, amazing health. I'm not saying that this is what we should do. I'm just saying that this is something that disproves a lot of the theories in the modern health world, right? And that it's a perfectly fine way to have great nutrition and be healthy and strong.
And you mentioned seed oils. I'm just curious about seed. So these have a negative thing about them, the seed oils?
Yeah, so there's a lot of evidence about this. You can look back 100 years to Weston Price that traveled around the world and kind of did what I did is, he visited these cultures that lived how they used to live, and he found that they had perfect health and they had great pregnancies, easy pregnancies, great kids growing strong, all the things, right? And that as soon as they started eating the modern foods like the flour and the sugar and the vegetable oils, the seed oils that came in, they immediately had health consequences. So Weston Price started figuring this out 100 years ago, and it's only kind of been more proven with modern science. And the science is a bit hard to do, and so there's some authorities saying that we should be eating more of these oils, these highly processed oils that we just invented 100 years ago. These American Heart Association, these people with, I think have a lot of conflicts of interest and, are funded by the food industry and people who produce these oils. But we have a lot of modern science to show that these are actually bad for us. And, they say, oh, it lowers your LDL cholesterol or something. But, that's a whole nother discussion is about cholesterol and what we know about it, and different patterns of eating can lead to different cholesterols and different health. Right. And so, if you kind of look at a lot of the science, if you look at ancient cultures, if you look at modern cultures, like I was in Uganda after Tanzania, and we saw a bunch of people, they're eating all whole foods, right? In Uganda, they can't even afford fast food or restaurant food. It's just, they just have food, right? It's just food. They eat bananas and they eat meat and milk and fruits and vegetables, and that's all they have. And they all were very healthy.
Yeah.
And actually, both of these, speaking of COVID, Tanzania, these people, they didn't have COVID. Like the president, they didn't even recognize it as a thing. No, zero people had a mask. There was nothing going on there. It was just everyone just was pretty healthy and living their life, and they were jammed into small buses, and the whole year they didn't do anything. And that's a whole nother story as well. But part of it, sorry, I kind of got off track, but they are pretty healthy. They are eating whole foods, and they were doing great. And they were not like Americans, walking around eating fast food and are obese and have 3 comorbidities and, these different diseases that cause the worst COVID outcomes. But then they did in Uganda, in this place, they were eating all these seed oils. So they did bring in these cooking oils, they call them. And you could see that the ladies in their middle age were becoming very obese and were having problems. And my idea, well, I don't know what else it could have been from, because they don't have fast food. They didn't have tons like other, I mean, the thing they had was seed oils, right? And then knowing, what I know about them and how they are not the fats you want to make your body up of. When you eat them, they do a lot of things, and they oxidize easily, right? And especially when they're heated, and which they're doing over there. They're frying their chicken and French fries in the vegetable oil. They become highly oxidized and they become inflammatory. And a lot of people, a lot of smart doctors and scientists I've interviewed believe that that's what is, pushing all the type 2 diabetes and obesity and all these problems, which I did see with these ladies, especially in middle age.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I think bringing it back to the theme of what I mentioned at the start of the podcast about convenience, I think that really plays a massive factor in the health and well-being of individuals around the world. Yeah, I guess. I mean, as I said, I'm not an expert or I'm not a doctor, but I did some study into the Wim Hof method, and there's actually some famous studies. The Radboud study, where he injects himself with the E. coli bacteria, and he eventually heals himself through the breathing method, through the cold, through his meditation system. And I think there is definitely something within the mind, within the body, within the soul. And I know it sounds a bit unquantifiable. It doesn't sound scientific, but I think there's something to do with the mind and the connection to it that we have. And yeah, we have the possibility to, I believe that we have the possibility to heal ourselves, but it all comes back. Sorry.
No, yeah, keep going. It all comes back to.
It all comes back to the convenience thing. I think that's a massive.
It really is. Okay, so I know what you mean. It sounds a little out there, but I mean, if you put it scientifically, it's basically sort of immune system and stress and response. And I think he's sort of modulating his immune system and his stress response. And yeah, there is some very scientific stuff going on there, I think. Right. And yeah, I haven't been sick. Well, now it's been 5 years. I haven't been sick. And I mean, you could say it's because I'm thinking positively. Yeah, you could attribute to a number of things, but I think what it is I changed my food choices and my lifestyle to basically just match what humans always have had as much as I can, right? I live in a modern society, but I'm kind of trying to give my body what it expects. And so you're correct in saying these modern conveniences, that's the opposite of that, right? Eating fast food and sitting around and doing all these things that we do is the opposite of what our bodies need. So if you just try to mimic that, yeah, get in the right mindset, get fresh air, get outside, get in nature, get exercise, have good relations with people, eat the right food, you're going to be healthy. And yes, I think you can influence your immune system by doing each of those things. Even just the stress. I mean, there's good data on stress and heart attacks and stress. Stress, your how you think can manifest in your body, right? I mean, I know if I get stressed out, my shoulders tighten up, right? There's a physical thing that's going on. So I mean, it's not, and yeah, there's good science showing that there is actual tangible things that happen when we're stressed. So yes, if you do all these things, you can change your immune health and yeah, be healthy.
What do you think of the Wim Hof method? What are your thoughts?
Well, I haven't looked that much
Haven't
into
looked
it.
into it.
No, yeah, not too much, but I do appreciate what I do know about it, right? Like different, yeah, breathing techniques, it all kind of checks out with generally what I get into.
Yeah. All right. Bringing it back to the food topics. So maybe we've already covered this. Maybe we can go over it again. How do you think we got fat and sick in the world? I think you might have covered
Oh,
this.
we kind of covered it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we
no,
kind of covered it.
no,
Yeah.
but I can go more specifically. So my big thing, I'm against vegans, I guess, and I'm against the calorie counting world, the calorie counting idea,
Okay.
or this thing. It's like, oh, all it is calories in, calories out. Okay, this is gonna come around. Don't worry. So if you think, I mean, in a sense, there is something to do with, yes, if I eat like 10,000 calories, I'm gonna get fat, and if I only eat 1,000 calories, I'll get skinny. Right? There's obviously something to it, but that whole idea of just counting calories and just thinking it's just all about this energy balance, you miss nutrients and protein and all these things that really matter a lot more, right? So I think the big mistake that I think we made is, for one, well, the biggest mistake is thinking animal foods are bad. If once we thought saturated fat and cholesterol were bad for us back in the 50s, this bad science was done, that kind of screwed everything up, right? So you have that. So if you think animal foods are bad, then you have to replace them with something. Okay. And then if you think that all calories are the same, if you're just like, oh, calories in, calories out, then why not just replace them, make a food pyramid where the bottom is refined grains and bread and pasta and whatever, crackers, and it's like 6 to 11 servings of grains and starches, which the whole world's copied right after the US did. So this is where I'm getting to the point of how we screwed up, how we got everyone fat and sick, is if you think all calories are the same and you just replace good quality protein, animal fat and animal protein, you end up with a very poor quality diet that doesn't fill you up, really. So if you are just eating, like, people can know there's a different sort of satiation level. It's called satiety. If you eat eat a bag of chips, I could eat a whole bag of chips, like a giant bag of chips, right? It's just like I could just keep eating them because there's not really any protein or nutrients in them. It's just the fat and carb combination, and they're very delicious. So if you kind of think about it that way, well, there's something called the protein leverage hypothesis that scientists figured out, where all animals, really, they even went to insects, eat to a certain amount of protein. Okay, so our bodies need a certain amount of protein no matter what. And so if you gave these insects or mice or whatever a different food that had a whole bunch of extra processed sugars and fats or something, right? You basically add potato chips to their diet, right? And you put them into, say, like pellets and food, right? Where the animal can't tell the difference between the pellet. They will eat way more calories to get the same amount of protein. So in other
Okay.
words, if you give them the correct ratio of protein, like we know that mice need what, 15% protein, whatever it is in their diet. We give them pellets that are 15% protein, they're fine. Then if we give them pellets with 10% protein, and so then it would just have more carbs and fat, they're going to eat that much more food to get that same 15% protein, right? They're going to have to eat more of those pellets to get to their 15% protein, or, well, grams, how many grams they need in their diet, right, for their weight. So that kind of explains in a big way why America and the world became fat and sick, if that makes sense, right? Because if you think that calories are the same, we're just like, oh, calories are calories. So then we're eating less protein. We're oh, meat's bad, so we're eating less meat. So now all of a sudden we have this diet that's based on starches and grains and all this type of stuff. And we see this in the data. You can look at studies that show what the percentage of protein people are eating before and now, and it's a lot less. And the obesity and disease have just gone up. So hope that made sense.
It did make sense, and I kind of want to add to the back of that. Would you also say that there's been some hidden agendas? I'm not going to say conspiracy theories, but maybe some conflict of interests. I think I read on your website that there was some sugar industries that were paying off scientists or something of this sort to, fabricate information and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not a conspiracy. It's just, for one, well, it's out in the open. A lot of this is just public knowledge, and a lot of it is just basic business, right? It's just people trying to make money, and the scientists were paid off. Yeah, the sugar industry did pay off scientists. This was proven. It was Harvard scientists. It was equivalent of only $50,000 in today's money, I think. It wasn't even that much money, but the sugar industry wanted to blame heart disease on fat instead of sugar, when it really, well, it's really refined foods is the problem. Smoking and refined foods is a big cause of heart disease. So it could be refined sugar or refined fats like seed oils. But anyway, they did pay off. There's more of these. There's bad science that was done by Ansel Keys. We're going all into this in the film, the 1950s, 60s. Like, basically, he's the one that kind of did some of this bad science that showed, well, he made it show that saturated fat caused more heart disease, right? So that kind of gave a green light. So once he put out that data and it said that saturated fat, cholesterol are bad for you, that gave the green light to the processed food industry to make all their processed packaged foods. They make tons of money off them. There's a high profit margin, and then from there, the rest is history. They just keep making more money. They do more advertising. They fund more studies to try to shift the data to fit their paradigm, right? That calories, they're the ones kind of pushing this calories in, calories out. It's kind of like, hey, drink a Coca-Cola. Coke funds all this type of research too. It's like, it's your fault. You're not exercising enough. It's like, drink the Coke, and if you're fat, it's because you didn't exercise enough. And it's just not true. It's just, that's not how it works. Like, on a mass scale, like we see that the problem is, if you're eating these foods, like I said, low in protein and just high in these empty refined sugars and in fats and stuff, you're screwed no matter what. So it's all of this big industry, and they keep perpetuating this. And so not only do they have the marketing dollars to control the media, all the advertising, all that stuff, they have the funding dollars, right, to fund more studies. They also even have just lobbying too, right? They can continue all the laws and all the things that just continue this system.
Absolutely. And speaking of Coca-Cola, I'd like to give a shout out to Cristiano Ronaldo for, I'm not sure if you saw the incident.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. That was a good stand, getting rid of the old sugar and caffeine hit. I think there's Yeah, I mean, I think if you're really after something sweet, just put like I don't know what would be the alternative. What do you think is a good alternative to Coca Cola?
Well, I think for one, I've sort of lost my taste for really sweet foods and sweet drinks. I drink soda water now, flavored soda water, right? There's like different sparkling water that, can have some lime flavor. I think it's delicious,
Yeah,
It's LaCroix and all these different brands. You could eat fruit, like you could eat honey. Like it depends on where you are in your health journey too. I think people who are, have type 2 diabetes and are very overweight, maybe you shouldn't be eating tons of fruit and honey. But if you are healthy and you can include them in your diet, they're natural foods and they taste good.
yeah. I think that is the problem, that sometimes these foods can taste that these bad foods can taste so good that they have this addictive mechanism, and yeah, it's can be dangerous.
It is. Well, that's
Um,
why I mean, really, just try to just avoid the process. Avoid them altogether, or most of the time, right? You don't have to be perfect, but
yeah.
I don't know. I'd say, yeah. I mean, I started doing. I just lost interest in those foods, kind of at least during the week. When I'm not out with friends, it's I just don't. It's not part of my life anymore.
And what does your typical day-to-day diet look like at the moment?
Yeah, I've settled down on 2 meals a day. I think it's really great for many reasons. I just also like to eat till I'm full, right? And if I don't like to just I think snacking's bad. I think you run into a lot of problems. I think eating all the time is bad, and you run into a lot of problems. A lot of people just eat from when they wake up until they go to sleep. So for many other reasons, people have probably heard of intermittent fasting. I think
Yes.
that's great. Just I barely I don't even know if we should consider it fasting. I mean, it's just like just not eating all the time should be normal, or that's what we used to do for all of history. And you, fewer, bigger meals and eat delicious, satiating foods. I eat meat, eggs, fish, some fermented vegetables. The fermenting gets rid of these anti-nutrients I mentioned earlier. And yeah, I mean, onions, mushrooms, avocado, just fermented vegetables, stuff like that. And I just eat that twice a day. It's amazing. I can't get enough of it. It's so delicious. I just eat giant steaks, and I don't know. It's great.
Is that part of the information from the primal coach? What's I've been reading up on him as well. What's that guy's name? He's
The older guy. Are
the
you talking
old
about Mark Sisson?
yeah, the older guy.
Mark Sisson?
Mark Sisson, I think it is. Yeah, he was. I think he does the 1 meal a day, or 2 meals a day, I believe. Yeah.
He's had all different things over the years. He's awesome. He's kind of he has a book. If you're talking about him, the Primal Blueprint is
That's
his
right. Yeah.
book, and yeah, and he talks about all this type of stuff. He's been at this for years. Yeah, he's been at this for years, and big inspiration to me. And yeah, he's into all these same things I'm talking about: nutrient density, eating fewer meals, doing all the ancestral things we're talking about. Like getting exercise, going outside, getting the sun, getting your vitamin D, all this stuff. Yeah, he knows what's up.
No worries. And actually taking it back to the movie, Food Lies. So how long did it take you to actually? Is this? It's. I'm guessing it's finished and it's ready for
Uh,
release. Or
Not yet. No,
oh
I'm
yeah.
working on it now. I'll probably get back into it once we get off the line. It's been like 4 years in the making. We going to Africa was part of our last things we need to shoot. We're going to some ranches soon in the end of the month. And yeah, I mean, we're just editing, working on graphics. It's a whole process, and I thought it was gonna be easy. I'm like, oh yeah, what's gonna be so hard? I'll just throw some interviews together. We'll get some nice images of cows, on the grass, and we're done. And now it's been 4 years.
Wow, 4 years.
Yeah, but
And
I do other stuff on the side. It turned into like my
yeah.
life, so I just do other things. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I'm just curious about your daily life, because yeah, you don't seem like the normal typical person. I mean, you've got things happening left, right, and center. So, um, what I guess what does a day in your life look like? I guess.
Yeah, well, I've kind of designed my life to in a really good way actually, where I don't have to have an alarm clock. I love that. I think sleep is super important. I always get enough sleep, right? I think I just been getting way more into sleep, which we haven't talked about yet, but just get 8 hours of sleep. There's tons of good books, and I just did a podcast I'll release tonight about it. Sleep's big. I just get up and start working. Actually I have some espresso. I make my own coffee. I think coffee's great as long as you're not chugging it all day, and just going too crazy with it. I think I just start working. I got a stand-up desk. I just work on all my projects. I have, all these different businesses going on, talk to people, go out in the sun in the middle of the day. I read, I'm always reading something, and I get my sun, get my vitamin D. I think that's super important. A lot of good studies coming out about the correlations between COVID and vitamin D, and the people who died or end up in the hospital have very, very low levels, and the people who had good levels were fine. So this is a good indication of immune health. So yeah, I was always out in the sun every day of the last year and a half. Then I get back to work, and then I work out in the evening. I think I'm really a big fan of short, intense workouts with weights or body weight and pull-ups, dips, or anything like that. Any kind of intense exercise or sprinting. My kind of tagline is eat densely, move intensely. So eat less. So people are saying, like, the Coca-Cola people are like, eat less, move more, right? The classic stuff is eat less, move more. And that's just meaningless advice. That's like someone saying, oh, how do I get rich? Oh, just make more money than you spend. You're like, oh, thanks. Great. So eat less, move more is meaningless, but eat densely, move intensely is actionable, right? So the whole thing we're talking about with all the food is nutrient dense food. Nutrient dense food is the animal foods. It's where the bioavailable nutrition is. And, it's satiating. It keeps you full and all that stuff. There we go. Eat densely, move intensely.
Hopefully I spelt it right. I don't know if I spelt it
right. Yeah,
you
got it. That's it. I'm trying to work on a shirt. I want to eat densely, move intensely shirt. But
that's the new slogan of. I can't take that slogan off you because that's yours. But that's I like that. Eat densely, move intensely. That's cool.
Yeah. So the densely, it's all the nutrition we talked about, and then the move intensely. Yeah, exactly. It's just throwing around some weights, push-ups, pull-ups, whatever you want to do, and sprinting. I'm just not a fan of this cardio stuff. Like, to me, this like low and slow cardio is kind of the equivalent of these low-fat diets, all the bad dietary advice that people are given, because it doesn't work well. It's not efficient. It's just, there's so many problems with it. I don't think people should exercise to burn calories. You exercise for 99 other reasons, and you happen to burn calories. And you probably burn more calories if you move intensely. If you're out there building muscle, you actually continue to, even just from breathing harder after, you are burning more calories anyway. But that's not the point, right? The point is all the other health benefits and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my day. I guess we kind of got through my day. Then I work out, then I eat again. Then I eat my second meal, get a whole bunch of good quality animal foods. I usually do my steaks at night. I eat like smoked oysters and just all kinds of stuff.
Do you train fasted?
I do. Well, not exactly. So I used to. Depends. But because I work out in the afternoon, it's like I have had my one meal at, say, noon, and then I'll be working out at 6. So it's not fasted, but I mean, I haven't eaten for 6 hours. And I trained for a decathlon, if you've heard of that, like the track event, the 10 events. It's in the Olympics, it's known as the world's best athlete. The winner of the decathlon in the Olympics would be considered the world's best athlete because it's 10 different events in 2 days, and they're all different events of strength and speed and endurance. Anyway, I did that. There's only a pentathlon available for the Masters Championships of North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. So I did that right before COVID. Well, it was 2 years ago, and I got second place in my age group without even eating. So I used to train fasted a lot. And then the day of the track meet was at noon, and it ended at 6, and I didn't eat anything.
How? But surely, I appreciate the idea, but I thought if you're going to, I thought that if you're going to compete, food would actually be beneficial. I used to be of the opinion that you could do everything fasted, but then I've kind of slowly changed my opinion that you need some sort of source of nutrition in your body to help fuel the cells,
Well,
isn't?
kind of. It's a yes and no. So I'm about to interview this lady. She's the world record holder in the older. She's like 44, and it's like the 100-meter masters record holder for women or something. Or she got first. And all she would eat before a race would be of some steak. She would just have like a couple pieces of steak as her only food about an hour and a half before the race. And so yes, she was talking about. Well, I know I didn't interview yet, but I know her. And there is something you need. And yes, the paradigm is that you need all these carbs and all this stuff to fuel you. But really, we're changing that paradigm. I don't know. I mean, it's not maybe optimal. I'm sure I could have
I've
ate some
actually
food.
well, sorry to cut you off there, but
Yeah.
I've actually been, not, haven't been experimenting. I have roughly been experimenting on myself because I play a bit of tennis, and I've been playing fasted, and then I'll switch to having a meal before, and just I feel like an hour. I can train fasted for about an hour. Anything after an hour, I feel like I have decline in results. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's just my
No, 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 yeah.
experience.
So I should go into more detail. One, it takes years to get fat adapted to be able to do this. And yeah,
Yeah.
I've tried to work out fasted before too. Like if I work out in the morning after not eating for, like 14 hours, and it doesn't work that well. But then again, I'm not that used to it. It's just how long your body gets used to something. So
Mm,
I mean, being fat adapted means that your body has all this fat to burn easily. You're used to burning the fat, and your body has all the fat. And so I should also say it's better for more endurance stuff. Like there's a guy, Zach Bitter, that has the world record in multiple world records for the ultra marathons, like these 100-mile races. And he'll do it on mostly fat. Like he's not eating all the Gatorade and all the carbs and all that stuff. He will eat some stuff on the race day for sure, but he's heavily trained fat adapted. So his body's very used to running on fat. So he can run 100 miles and not have to eat all those weird goos and all those things so often. But
yeah,
yes, you're
that's
right.
crazy.
It's probably not optimal. So I play a lot of beach volleyball, and if I don't eat before, I can do fine for a couple hours. But yes,
Yeah,
but then after the third hour, it doesn't go well.
I feel like my focus, I lose focus on the ball after a while. Like I just, yeah, well, I can still play, but it's just I feel like if I have some
Well, are you
food in the.
eating? Well, if you ate a ketogenic diet for 2 years and then did it fasted, it would be different. So I don't know. I don't know if you did that.
Well, I've been fasting at that time for about 6 months.
But
So
what were you eating? Were you eating a very, very low carb diet?
no, not typically. Um,
That's what I'm saying. It's not for everyone. This is by no means like just general advice. But if someone wants to, this is kind of what I did. Well, for one, I wanted to change my diet and become fat adapted, and then you become metabolically flexible, which is another thing Mark Sisson talks about. So
mm,
most people are just totally relying on carbs, and they're just eating carbs all day, and their blood sugars up and down all over the place. And then I chose to do pretty much a ketogenic style diet for a number of years. Got very fat adapted so that I didn't have to eat. I could go long periods without eating and do all this stuff. And then the next move is to become metabolically flexible, add in some carbs, whole food carbs and stuff like that. And then you can go about your life in a more quote balanced diet. But that's what I'm saying. It's like sort of this long process, and it's what your body's used to, and not everyone's going to do all this.
yeah, it's a very restrictive style of eating. I know when the Christmas meals come around, it's very yeah, it's very difficult to constrain yourself to that style of eating. How did
Well,
you go though? Like those 2 years. Like I mean, what? So that's pretty impressive. So you were must be drinking a lot of coffee. I'm guessing.
no, no. I mean,
No?
I just have coffee. Well, I mean, I'd eat. I wasn't even hungry in the morning. So people like I eat lunch and dinner. I eat so much food, and it's so satiating and healthy, lots of fat and protein, that I'm not hungry at all. It's like I basically would have to force myself to eat lunch, at 12. So I was like, oh yeah, I need to eat. So it's just what you're used to. I mean, yeah, there's
Yeah.
people who eat one meal a day and they're not hungry all day, and then they eat a giant meal and then they're fine.
No worries. All right. Is there anything do you think we've missed on the today, or anything you want to add?
Oh
Anything else
man.
you want to add in?
A little, I mean, we covered a lot actually. Yeah, we covered most of the things. I guess the only thing we missed that we don't need to go into, but I just want to throw out there is the environmental side. Well, I don't think that many people, well, for one, your diet does not affect the environment that much anyway. The vegans will try to make you think it is and make it this big deal. I'm like, no, that's not it. What the big problems are, big industry and big, like flying private jets around the world and stuff like that. That makes a difference. So just I would say don't worry about that environmental stuff. The animals are part of the system and it's fine. Eat animals, don't be scared. Don't buy into this propaganda about climate change, well, about animals eating meat and whatever they try to claim happens, because it's not true. I could give you tons of studies about it. I did a presentation about it. You can watch on my Food Lies YouTube channel.
So what you're
yeah.
saying is you don't like vegans? I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. Not
They're great people. They just are very confused. Very confused.
all right. Cool. Well, okay. Well, I'd like to leave the audience with. I know you mentioned at the start that the most nutrient dense was beef liver. I found that pretty interesting, pretty cool. Are you a fan of beef liver?
Not exactly. It's a bit hard to take. There's different ways you can eat it. You can actually yeah, I mean, my company's a US company, but at Nose to Tail, we take beef liver and the other organs and we grind it up and put it into ground beef. And so you can make like a hamburger patty out of it. So that's a good way to eat it. If anyone, you could try to make it at home. You can ask your local butcher to do it. And it's a great way to get it in your diet without really tasting it. But yeah, I mean, it's very nutritious. Like my grandparents ate it. Like I don't know if you've heard, right? Liver and onions used to be like a thing people ate, or I don't know.
I had some. Yeah, it's got a very how do I explain it? I don't know how to explain it. It's very dense, coarse. It's very coarse in the middle of yeah. It's definitely
the texture is weird. Yeah,
texture is weird.
It's irony. It's irony. It's like, yeah, it tastes kind of like blood. It's weird.
It's weird, but it's I'm gonna start eating liver by the day now. I'm gonna take your advice.
Well, no, just some people do it once a week. Some people even cut it up and you can just like swallow little pieces of it. It's like a little pill, but it's like a whole food thing. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming up to the hour mark now, and I think we've covered quite a bit. So I might finish the podcast there. Yeah, no worries, guys. Well, thanks for watching. And so I think we've already covered everything today. So, no worries. All right. Well, I might end it there. No worries.
Sounds good. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys, for watching. Thank you.